Good morning. Welcome. We're not on? We're good? All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Larry Swartz. I'm the chair, and this is in accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended. Meeting of the Committee of Adjustment, City of Toronto is called to order. To introduce the members, on my left, Ms. Casson. On my right, Mr. Nipfel. Online, we have Mr. Bartolo and Ms. Sankar. Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to property. Also considers permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses and consent to sever property to create new lots. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. This is a hybrid hearing. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are conducted hybrid, allowing both in-person virtual participation via WebEx. Meetings are also streamed live on Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Virtual participants must register in advance and can join via video or audio using computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. All virtual participants will be muted on entry and unmuted by the moderator when their item is called. Please mute your device until you are called to speak. Participants appearing by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when their item is discussed. Your camera will be enabled during your 5-minute speaking time, after which you will be reverted to an attendee. Committee staff will share presentations submitted in advance. Virtual participants are not permitted to use share screen or other panelist controls during the hearing. If you're attending in person and would like to receive a copy of the committee's decision, please fill out a decision request card. Virtual participants must submit a written request by email and include their name, address, email address to receive notifications and updates. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in certain cases to the Ontario Land Tribunal, that's OLT. But recent amendments to the Planning Act limit third-party appeal rights, so only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies can appeal decisions. Appeal instructions are provided at the bottom of the committee's decision. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. For uncontested applications, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if they wish. If the committee does not require presentation, applicants should notify the chair if they wish to speak. The committee may ask questions or move directly to deliberation for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will have a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will notify you as you approach your time limit, and please remember that all materials must have been submitted in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept any materials during the hearing. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address. Confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We will hear first from the applicant or the agent, followed by the individuals in support or opposition. In-person speakers will go first, following those participating virtually. Committee members may ask questions after each speaker. Once all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will have the opportunity to rebut any issues raised. This will conclude the discussion, and the application will then be taken into committee for a decision. All right, so do we have any minutes from a previous session? Mr. Deputy?
Not at this moment, Mr. Chair. We may have a item from a minute extract to approve at the 2 p.m. time slot.
Okay. And do we have any declarations of interest from the panel or staff for any items? Appears no. All right. And do we have any deferral requests, Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, any deferral requests
Through you, Mr. Chair, in the AM period, we have a deferral request from the applicant for items number 1 and item number 4.
All right. Okay, so in that case, let us, so are there, well, before we get to that, any files to be closed, any motions?
There are no files to close today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's get into the deferral requests. We've got item number 1. So item number 1 is 20 Keynes Avenue. This is to obtain consent to sever property into 2 residential lots and construct 2 new 2-story dwellings. There are also a number of variances associated with this consent, but let us go to the applicant. We've got the applicant's agent, and we have a few area residents. So the applicant's agent, you are requesting a deferral, so why don't you just briefly give the reason why you're requesting the deferral, and then we'll see if there's only really one. Okay, there are 2 people who may want to speak, but let's talk to the applicant's agent. Hello?
Good morning, committee members. It's Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road. We're requesting referral because I was just in receipt late the staff report. We would like to speak with planning because the planning report seems very strange that they're not supporting this when there is a severance right beside and right behind us and
Okay.
2 others in the immediate area.
You don't
So,
need to get into the
I know that
substance,
this
I
committee-
understand. You're requesting this.
Oh, yeah, no, I
because of
thought
the
you wanted to know
staff
why I
report.
wanted to.
Okay, so let's just put you on hold for a second. Let's, there are residents, right? So just from the point of view of residents, you don't have to speak to this at all. The question really I have for you is, do you have any opposition to the deferral? Okay, we have a request by the applicant to defer it. If that request is successful, there will not be a hearing today on this matter, okay? So do you have any objection to that?
Mr. Chair, we still need the neighbor's name and address, please.
Yeah, okay, well, let's put them on. Where are they? Oh, they're here. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, but state your name before you say anything else.
Katerina Kostecka,
And your address?
264 Pleasant Avenue.
Okay, so before you say anything, they're asking for a deferral, which means
Right.
they don't get approval today, they get it deferred. Do you have any objection to that?
Well, as I said, we showed up, took time off work, and it's just last minute changes, and so,
I apologize for that, it's not my doing.
okay. Do we
but
know how long the deferral, would, how long they need for this?
For the deferral,
Yes.
we're gonna go into committee in a minute and defer it, unless there's some kind of objection, in which case we have to go to a whole hearing. So you can basically leave unless you have an objection to the deferral request.
Okay, so I have a question, because I missed, it's very hard to hear you. How can we, first of all, register for the decision part? And how is it going to be communicated when the next session is rescheduled?
So we, as a panel, we're decision makers. We don't deal with the administrative nature, but
Okay.
based on what I know, what will happen is, so what is likely to happen right now is we will hear from you and your fellow neighbor just about the deferral issue, because we have a request on the floor for deferral. We will likely then go into committee and defer it. You will then get a notice from the city. The applicant will go meet with city staff, talk to them, maybe make changes, maybe talk to you. Certain things will happen.
Okay.
And then the applicant will bring forward their application again with a new date.
Okay.
However, at that stage, things may be significantly different because they have a staff report. The staff report is making recommendations. They have to deal with the staff and deal with you. And in fact, that's what I would suggest, that you, that after this is done as deferral, I'm assuming, although it hasn't been done yet, you call the staff, you call the applicant, and you try to make changes to it so that you can live with whatever the changes are. Failing that, you will be back here again in front of this committee another day. And you don't have to attend in person, you can go remotely. And I
Right.
do appreciate you attending in person.
Are you suggesting we actually reach out to the applicant, or shouldn't the applicant be reaching out to us?
Well, he should reach out to you, but you can reach out to him too.
Okay, okay, thank you. Then there's no
So you have
objection
no
for
obje-
deferrals.
Okay, okay, thank you. Now, there's another individual somewhere? Oh, where is the other individual? If you have another individual and you want to speak, just come up. We'll do the same thing with you. You'll state your name, you'll state your address. You don't have to come if you refuse, if you don't want to. But if you do want to come, we'll just go through the same process with you. No, you don't want to come. Okay, so the other person said they don't want to come, so we don't need their name. All right? Okay, so we've heard, I think from the resident, I guess just because the applicant, do you have anything more to say, applicant's agent, based on what you've heard? We always give you a final say, but otherwise we're just going into committee. Do you have anything you need to say? You're going to go talk to the residents and maybe try to get this resolved in a better way than it has been up to now? Hello, applicant? No. I don't hear the applicant. So let's just go into committee. The applicant's there? Okay, applicant, do we need to hear from you anymore? Hello? Oh, geez.
I'm not, oh, sorry, they weren't unmuting me, sorry. I was trying to speak, but I was muted. I would like to know who the other person is there so I can reach out to them, but if that's an issue, you don't
Well,
have
they
to tell
just,
me.
they chose not, you know what? When you go,
Okay.
you don't have to come up, that's okay. They have the name and address of the person who appeared. If you contact them, they will be able to get the other person.
Mr. Chair, if there
Perfect.
is another
I have
speaker,
nothing
they
else.
should come up.
That's their choice. We don't force people to come up. If you want to come up, you can come up and give your name, and then he will send you information. But it's your choice. We don't force people to appear as residents. Okay. Okay, so it's just
The
say-
full name or just first name is enough?
yeah, your full name and your address.
Okay, my name is Larissa Kostecкая,
Your address.
and address 25 Cactus Avenue.
And you have no objection to the deferral today?
Sorry?
You don't object to the fact that that the request to defer?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, so applicant's agent, are you satisfied? You have the information? You can get it through the city as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to go into committee? You don't have anything else you need to say, do you, applicant's agent?
No,
No? Okay, let's go into committee. All right, so we have a request for deferral. This is item number 1. Do we have a motion or any comment on it? We have, okay. Okay, Ms. Sankar has motion to.
For you,
defer.
Mr. Chair, I'm making a motion, and I motion to defer this application, sine die, to afford the applicant some time to not only speak with residents, but to work with the planning team on sort of their new review of the application. Thank you.
You need a seconder. I see Ms. Casson, seconder. All right, I'm presuming there's no debate. All those in favor of the motion to defer? Thank you. Okay, so the matter has been deferred until
thank you.
future date. Thank you. All right, so now we have, I believe it's item 4 is another request for deferral. Okay. All right, so item 4 is 213 Empress Avenue. This is to construct a circular driveway. There's several variances here. Is this the applicant's agent at the podium?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So
Just for
please-
the record, my name is Roshan Thuru. I'm a planner at Design Plan Services, located at 87 Skyway Avenue, Suite 200.
Okay, the staff got the name? All right, thank you. And so what's the reason for your deferral, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, My clients are contemplating making revisions to the proposal, and we are waiting for a revised zoning notice.
Waiting for a revised zoning notice. All right, do we have, I believe, one person, area resident. Are they here? Okay. So we've got a request for deferral. We've got an area resident. Come to the podium, state your name, address. So you heard what I said about state your name and address. And you,
Good morning. My name is Jacek Gorka. I reside at 261 Willowdale Avenue, which is one house over west from property in question.
okay,
So it's an intersection of Empress and Willowdale.
okay. So now we're not talking about the merits of this application yet. We're only
Yes, I
talking
understand.
about deferral. It's just like what you just saw.
Yeah, I understand procedures.
And I thank you for attending, and I apologize for you for going through this. I guess suppose you did not know that it was going to be deferred. or
No,
that there
no,
was-
I do this for a living,
Oh,
so I understand the process. Thank you.
Okay, so do you have any objection to?
I would like
deferral?
to object the deferral situation because I don't see merit in this application.
Sir,
I have
you're-
some private reasons, but this is not important. The important reason that I would like to bring up is engineering and environmental, especially in the view of recent events. I don't think the neighborhood should be casting water into stormwater
So
systems.
you're objecting to the deferral, I take it?
Yes, yes. So I'm giving you the reason why I think it will just repeat itself into the same situation. I just don't see engineering done properly.
Okay, so
on
just let
this.
me be clear. You're asking us to refuse it instead of defer it?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say about that?
Basically, environmental issues
Environmental
that
issues?
and neighborhood issues that I don't see being resolved
Okay.
if this application ever proceeds.
Okay,
We will come and object again.
all right, got it. Is that it for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Short
so
and sweet.
back to the applicant's agent. Okay, so you come up, but let me just canvass. So we've got okay, so he's asked for a refusal. We don't need to go through your whole application, I don't think. Otherwise, we might, but let me just canvass our members before we get into this. Does anybody want to hear from the applicant? You do?
No, I have a question of the applicant.
Okay, go
It seems
ahead.
to me that the issue here is the extent of revision that's being contemplated. The last applicant indicated that he is, he's not confident that this application can be revised to be acceptable. There is a great deal of opposition from within the city, from planning and engineering and forestry. If you're going to make a minor revision, we should probably hear it today because it's unlikely you're going to be able to address the concerns. Are you looking at a major revision?
Through you, Mr. Chair, by requesting the deferral, it's something that we could take back to our project team and explore further, and we could discuss any issues that the neighbor has and come back at a later date with revised plans and a revised zoning notice. And we do want to discuss with planning staff further regarding for this proposal, and that's the reason for the deferral.
Have you not discussed this with the neighbors previously?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my client did not make me aware of any concerns, and there was nothing uploaded to the AIC. So we'll, like I said, through you, Mr. Chair, a deferral will allow us to discuss this with the neighbor, planning staff, and transportation.
All right, have you discussed this with the neighbor previously?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I have personally not.
Oh, okay, well, you have personally, not your client. Has anybody discussed it with a neighbor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not that I am aware of. So
All right,
this deferral will allow us to discuss this with the neighbor as well.
all right. Panel members, you need to hear more on this? Do you want to hear more? Okay, we have Ms. Sankar. We're not in committee yet, so you have a question or a comment, or you want to hear more from the applicant, Ms. Sankar?
No, I'm ready for a motion, sir.
Okay, you're ready for a motion. I take it, like, you can go on with your application. We're not going to take that away from you, but I think the panel members don't need to hear more from you unless you desire that.
Thank you for your time, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. All right, back to now we're back into committee, and Ms. Sankar, you have a motion?
Yeah, I do. With respect to the deferral, I'm willing to grant it because I do believe that, there's a need to go back and review this for the revisions of the zoning notice, but also the fact that they're willing to work with neighbors. I want to give them that opportunity to do so. And so I'll put forward a motion to defer this application sine die for those reasons.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Sankar, and Ms. Casson has seconded that. And any debate or discussion, or can we put it to a vote? I don't see any burning desire for debate from the facial reaction from anybody, so let's vote on it. All those in favor of the deferral? And it is deferred. Thank you. All right, let's go on to the number 2. Number 2 is 40 Thursfeld Crescent. This is to construct a new semi-detached garage in the rear yard. We have 3 variances. They are proposed lot coverage, proposed ancillary lot area coverage, and proposed rear yard soft landscaping. We have a Metrolinx report and a letter of support on file, and we have nobody here in opposition. So, do we have the applicant's agent or applicant? Item number 2, do we have the agent anywhere? Are they online?
Good morning,
Good morning. State your
Mr.
name and
Chair.
address, please. Hello.
This is Bamda Ben Baghdadi, the applicant, the architect from BBA Design Studio, Inc. for 2 projects before you today, number 40 and 42 Thursfield Crescent.
Okay.
The address for record is 13 Hollyberry Trail in North York.
Okay, so I see that. All right, we've got the 40 and 42 that can be, I suppose that they can be heard. We're going to have to vote on them, but we can hear them together if you want. And let me,
Sure.
just let me talk about 42 as well. 42 Thursfeld, so this is application number 3, 42 Thursfeld Crescent. It's to construct a new semi-detached garage in the rear yard. And there is a letter of support, there is a Metrolinx report, and there is a requested variance for the total area on the lot covered by ancillary buildings. Okay, so we can hear both together. There's nobody here in opposition to them, but, and we've heard your name and address. Before, I'm going to put you on hold for a second, but I just wonder, are there any changes since the application, Mr. Applicant's agent? So that's my first question.
No, it's the application is.
Okay, so just wait a moment and let me canvass my panel members and see whether they want anybody? I don't see any desire from anybody on the panel to hear any further presentation from you, Mr. Agent. Reading the room, I think you have no need to make a presentation. However, we won't deny it. If you need it, you can make it, but otherwise you could be lucky here and not have to do a presentation. Do you want to make a presentation, or can we just go into committee?
I just would like to add one note to this application. We communicated with the Metrolinx staff, and we got 2 responses back from them. And basically, they're saying if the committee decides to approve these 2 applications, they do not need any application with Metrolinx. And we would like to ask committee that should they decide to approve this application, no Metrolinx comment or condition be tied to the decision notice.
All right. Panel understand that about the Metrolinx issue, or is there anybody that wants to make have a question? Ms. Casson, you have a question for the applicant?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just a minute.
Is what I'm seeing on the screen here the same uh, advisory comments of Metrolinx that staff is putting up? I just want to make sure it's the same one. I see it's advisory comments 1 to 4. Does the applicant have anything in writing from Metrolinx, regardless of their conversation, saying that, you know, we are not to put this, you know, to tie this to any advisory comments of Metrolinx?
The only communication, through you, Mr. Chair, the only communication we have is these 2 emails, which is in writing. And basically, they're saying, both departments in Metrolinx, they're saying that if committee decides application, since there is no work will be done on the public land, everything will be done inside the private property, and we are away from the Eglinton Crosstown, they do not need any application. Or review is not required. That's what they're saying.
I mean, I read the Metrolinx report. I don't really see anything in it, but Ms. Casson had a question. Do you have a follow-up question, Ms. Sankar? Or can I go to Ms. Casson?
No, I do see what's written here, so I just, I wanted to interpret it, that's all.
Ms. Casson also has a question.
No question. I'm just ready to make a motion.
Okay, so the applicant, you've already stated everything. You don't have anything more to say, or do you? Because otherwise we'll go into, we don't really need to hear from you, right? Got it?
No, Mr. Chair, everything is fine.
Okay, let's go into committee. Ms. Casson is itching to make a motion. Let's take it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm ready to make a motion to approve this application. I think the variances requested are very minor. It's a replacement of an existing semi-detached garage, which will improve the appearance within the neighborhood as well. So I think it meets the 4 tests, and happy to make a motion to approve. I think we have to do them separately. So
Yes.
I will make the motion for item number 2, 40 Thursfield Crescent, with no conditions. And then I'm happy to move the next one as well.
Okay, so we've got a motion, Ms. Casson, the seconder. I need a seconder, Mr. Nipfel. Okay, all in favor of that? It's carried. Congratulations, that's on item number 2. Item number 3, back to Ms. Casson. You want to make a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For item number 3, 42 Thursfield Crescent, I'm happy to make a motion for approval as well for the same reasons as the previous one, i.e. that the variances are minor, they meet the 4 tests, and it's more than desirable for the neighborhood, so.
And Mr. Nipfel is also seconding it. All those in favor? And it is carried. Congratulations to the applicant's agent, and we can move on to now item number
Thank you.
5. Item number 5 is 280-422 Consumers Road. This is a proposal to allow a medical clinic as a permitted use. There is a staff report where community planning have indicated no objections. Proposal seeks to add a clinic as permitted use. That is the only variance request. There is no one here in opposition. There is an agent. Would the agent please come forward either online or in person? Hello, agent.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Nicholas Malta, planner at Mainline Planning, the authorized planners of the owner of the property. Our address is 100 Cold Spring Road in Kleinburg, Ontario.
All right, any changes to this application? Is it as is?
No changes.
Well, before you get going, let me just look around the room to my panel members and see heads shaking, which is a good sign for you. I see slight head shakes, which means, Mr. Agent, you do not have to make a presentation, but we don't take that right away. So if you're good, we are almost good. You could be lucky. Do you want to make a presentation, or can we just go into committee?
You can just go into committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we're in committee now, and I need a motion. And I see Mr. Nipfel, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application, subject to attaching the Metrolinx advisory comments. I think this is a very straightforward application. It's a related use to one that's already there. It doesn't really impact the gross floor area. It has no, as far as I can see, any negative impact on either the property itself or neighboring properties. I think it meets the four tests.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we don't normally attach advisory conditions as they're advisory at this point.
Let's just take that out.
Yeah, the applicant has been provided the written notice,
Yeah.
and there would be no way to declare a condition.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's a motion to approve, no conditions, right? And Ms. Casson, I think you're seconding it, and those in favor of that, looks like it's approved unanimously. Congratulations. We now can move on to item number 6, which is 46 Verwood Avenue. It's a proposed second floor addition. There are 2 variances, side yard setback and on the east and the west. And this one does have some neighbors who are interested in addressing us. So let's go to the, I believe, in-person applicant agent. State your name and address, please.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Han Zhu. I'm part of 7K Design, the agent applicant for the case.
Okay, and are you making any changes before we get going?
No.
All right, we do have neighbors of concern. They're virtual, right? Are they there? Thank you. Okay, so you've got up to 5 minutes to make a presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to mention a few outlying issues with the property. So we are applying for 2 variances today, both for side yard setbacks, one towards the west side of the property, with a variance allowing for 1.8 meters. We are applying for 1.73 meters. And then also the east side yard setback, where the allowance is 1.8 meters, and we are applying for 1.4 meters. So these are existing conditions on the property of the existing house. It is currently a bungalow. We are applying for a second story addition on top of the existing footprint that is there today. In terms of, with regards to the neighborhood has existing setbacks of varying sizes for this general area, and it is usually around anywhere between 1 meters to 1.8 or 2 meters, depending on the scope of the house. I do want to say the lot size, as well as reiterate the footprint, is not changed. In terms of height massing for the neighborhood, it is generally composed of detached dwellings of 2 stories or single stories. Majority of the houses in the area have undergone rebuilds, additions. Specifically with regards to the Verwood on the west side, there is currently 18 properties on the west side of Yeomans Road. Currently, 7 of the 18 properties have been rebuilt with variances regarding to various heights, massing, as well as setbacks. And there's also 1 addition of existing footprint in the area as well. So 8 out of the 18 properties on this dead-end street have already gone for variances of setbacks, massing, and heights. And just to reiterate, our house is currently sitting at a massing of 23% coverage for the property, whereas the allowance is 30%, which is also exceeded by most of the custom builds on this street. We are also well under the allowed maximum height of 10 meters. The proposed dwelling after the addition will sit at 8.93 meters. In regards to the general for the zoning intents, it mainly deals with spacing and privacy as well as density. So as iterated, our density is well under what is allowed for the area. The rear yard setback, we are actually twice as much what it is currently allowed. So we are actually we are providing adequate lighting as well as privacy for all our adjacent properties. I believe the current allowance for the rear setback is 7.88 meters. Currently, on the east side, we have 16.7 meters, and then on the west side, we have 19.63 meters in terms of a setback. So I believe the proposal is desirable for the entire area, as well as it is appropriate in size and spacing, as well as I did want to mention the relation to the west side property. After our addition, it will have a solid wall facing the walls, the west side property, and the portion of the building that we are building on that side is also facing directly towards the adjacent property, which is also a solid facing wall. Any windows or lighting that they might incur from the east side property is vacant because of the empty space that we are limiting for the rear yard, as well as we are far enough from the rear property as well to make sure that, you know, none of the impacts impact them as well. And none of the landscaping on the property is also being changed. Any hard surface, soft surface are being maintained as is. Thank you. I think that speaks to the majority of the case.
Thank you. And do we have any questions from any of our panel members? All right, so thank you. We've got some residents. Let's go to the phones and put the
Hi,
residents.
my name is Ranji Kai.
Hello? Resident?
Hi, my name is Ranji Kai. Can you hear me?
No, not
Hello?
very well. You just speak up a little bit, please. Clearly state your name and address.
Yes. My name is Ranji Kai. My name is Ranji Kai. I'm the neighbor for 48 Wellwood Avenue.
Does staff
I
have
have a
his
question
name and address?
regarding
Okay. Okay, so you've got
my address,
up to 5
48
minutes
Wellwood.
to state your case. All right, go ahead. Hello?
My name is Ranji Kai, and I have a question. Hello?
Yes. You have a question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You have a
Yes.
question or you have a comment?
Yes. My name is Ranji Kai. I have a question regarding to the west side east. So I noticed
you have a
that
question of the applicant?
property is already. Yeah. No, I have a question. So I know that the property for 46 Wellwood Avenue is already below the allowance for 1.8 meter from the property line. So I have a concern about further extend to 1.8. I know the current is 1.8, but for the second floor, I propose just stay with the zoning law, because if you look at the zoning plan, they even have a shed sitting just right at the property line, right? So it has been couple of years, and because neighbor, I do not want to like ask them to remove the shed at the property line. But in the meantime, I believe the law definitely have some meaning to set the property has to be at least 1.8 meter from the property line. That's why I prefer to stay as it is.
All right.
It suggests for 1.8.
Okay, but all right. So you prefer? Did you have a question? I wasn't sure if you had a question when you started. Is there a question you'd like to ask? You don't have to ask.
Yes. So
okay, what's your question?
Yes, I do have a question. So may I know the planning for this additional build, as well as the time and schedule for this build?
Oh, you want to know the time
Like, I
schedule
mean,
for the build and what else?
Yes.
What was the other thing you wanted?
And as well as I would like to confirm that it just additional add to the second floor, and there's no extend for the first floor, because we noticed that like the property do have some shed on the property line as well. So I just want to make sure there's no additional extension from the first floor.
Okay, I think what we'll do, since he's still at the podium, we'll go back to the applicant if he can answer the questions that the that the resident asked. So how long is it going to take to build this? And are you just adding to the second floor? Or are you doing anything else?
Yeah, so there's no extension to the ground floor. In terms of the schedule and time for the construction, depending on the approval and the building permits approval, it'll either start probably this year or by spring of next year. This type of construction typically takes about 4 to 6 months. For any exterior portion, it's most likely around 2 months, I would say, 2 to 3 at max. And then everything else will be interior work. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so you've heard the, I don't want to go too much back and forth, but you've heard the answer, right? So can we consider you're done with your presentation, right? We're going to move on.
May I ask one more question regarding
All
to
right, let's
the
go with one
building
more
time,
question.
everyday building,
Pardon me? What's the other question?
everyday time, like building time, like when going to start in the morning and when going to like finish the work in the afternoon, because we do have some kids at home.
Okay. I want all your questions now because you're finished. We're going to go back to the applicant. I'm going to hear his answers to whatever question you have. I'm going to go back to him. But I want all the questions now. I don't want any further questions. So you just want to know the times of construction, right? Anything else?
Yes.
That's it?
Not for me. Like,
Okay. So we'll go back to him and then I'm going to hear from the next resident. All right? So back to the applicant. The resident wants to know the times that you're going to be doing the construction.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The construction times usually it's preset by Toronto's construction laws. So typically, any exterior work should usually be around 8 or 9 a.m. until 5 or 6 p.m. in the afternoon. And then if they do carry any work, it'll be inside and it'll be quiet work. Nothing that should affect the neighbors and the surroundings.
Okay. So let us go on to the next resident, please. Same address? Oh, it's the same address. Okay, so we don't have a next resident. It's the same address, the same, the same. Okay, so I'm going to take it that we've heard. So you got a rebuttal as the applicant. Do you have anything that you want to say? You have answered his questions. Do you have any? Maybe I'll just ask you. Why don't you work with this resident as you go through the process so that you can keep them happy? Are you going to be able to do that?
I think, Mr. Chair, yeah, so during the construction, the contractors will definitely reach out to make sure we reach an agreeable scheduling.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you want to say about this?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any panel members have questions from the applicant? No, I don't see any. All right, the agent, you can sit down. We're going to go into committee now. All right, thank you to everyone for presentations. I look to my panel members if there is a discussion or a motion. Do we have anybody who wants to do something?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
if my
Bartolo.
colleagues don't have any questions, I'd like to move a motion of approval.
Okay, so Mr. Nipfeld didn't move the motion, but I saw Mr. Bartolo raising his hand. Is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
That's okay. Mr. Bartolo, would you like to do something?
I know,
Seconding this?
it's okay there, Mr. Chair. I was gonna make the same motion. You can
Yeah.
go ahead and finish it off.
Yeah, okay. So why don't I'll consider you to be the seconder. We'll let you do your motion the next one because I saw Mr. Nipfel jump in there keen to bring this motion. All right, so we got a motion, Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Bartolo. And I don't see any burning debate, so all those in favor, and I see hands all raised, so it has been approved. Thank you, congratulations to the applicant, and we will move on.
Mr. Chairman, could I just clarify that the reason for the motion was,
Yeah.
I think the variances are minor, excuse me. I think they meet the 4 tests, and as the applicant indicated, they're existing conditions, and the built form replicates what's already in the community.
All right, so thank you for elucidating on that motion. And it is being approved, so we can move on to item number 7, which is Six to 8 Tippett Road. This proposed variances seek to reduce the requirement for non-residential uses and increase in residential gross floor area. There was previously a minor variance application. We've got, let me just see here. We have an applicant and we have a new agent. There is an arborist report, and there are 3 variances, including residential GFA, minimum non-residential GFA, and non-residential GFA on the 2nd floor. Okay, so we got the applicant here, and we have nobody in opposition. So would you please state your name and your address?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and to the panel. My name is David Bronskill, last name spelt Bronskill. My address is 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400 in Toronto, and I am here, very pleased to be here in person for the first time in a long time as agent for the applicant.
All right, thank you. Are you making any changes to this application?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Before we get going with your in-person presentation, let me just see if our panelists want to do anything. Do they want a presentation or do they want to ask a question? And Ms. Casson has a question, so please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I don't need a presentation, but I would just like to maybe zero in on the 4 tests. We have a very thorough planning rationale
Yes.
here from Bousfields, but maybe you could just sort of give us the Reader's Digest version of that. Because I know there were some changes to the zoning in the official plan, so I'd just like to hear that.
No, I can absolutely do that. We do, as you know correctly, a very extensive planning rationale from Bousfields. I've been involved in this site for a significant number of years, including when the original approval was granted as well. So there are the variances. They are all related to one concept, which is the 2nd floor commercial space being redeployed as residential. So there'd be 25 additional housing units. No changes to the built form itself, and then importantly, still the at-grade commercial space being delivered through the development. The history of this, and I'll, in terms of the 2 tests related to the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the history to this, including the SASP that's in place for the site, related to a long time ago, the conversion of these lands when they were an area of employment or an employment area to have mixed-use development. And that process led to the SASP, and it's OPA 309. The intent of that SASP was to ensure that the same number of jobs in the area was maintained in the area as it went to a mixed-use development near the subway. And that intent, we actually have benefit here of an order from the tribunal back in 2019 that reviewed that OPA. And there's actually a quote in the Bousfields planning rationale on page 10 where it's not just me telling you what the intent is, but the tribunal, based on the evidence from the city and from Bousfields at the time, confirmed that that was the intent. So it's to maintain the number of jobs in the area. The reason then, in terms of why it maintains both the general intended purpose of the OP and the zoning bylaw, is that commercial GFA that is still being delivered at grade. It represents about 22% of the non-residential GFA that existed at the time, and I'll come back to the significance of that number in a minute, but actually represents more jobs on the site than existed 5-6 years ago before the development process. And that's why Bousfields gives the opinion that the general intended purpose is maintained, because we're ensuring that there are actually more jobs on the site through this mixed-use development than existed in the previous non-residential, frankly, low-scale self-storage type uses that were on the site before. The 22%, I told you I would come back to that number. It fits nicely within a window of an emerging policy direction in the city where they are grappling with this idea of office replacement. One site in the downtown you may have read about is the Rogers Building on Bloor, right at the ramp down to Mount Pleasant. They did 20% replacement of the existing non-residential on that site in a combination of non-residential GFA and affordable housing. This project independently has affordable housing in it through the initial approvals, about 15 units. Then we've got the 22% commercial. So we're actually exceeding that approval that went through council. And then we've seen an emerging policy direction that went to Planning and Housing Committee that is tentatively recommending 25% replacement in some combination of non-residential, affordable housing, and or community uses. So again, we've got about 22% plus the affordable housing that we'd already secured with the original approval. So we're actually better than that emerging policy direction of 25%. So both in terms of existing policy and emerging policy, we're meeting that intent. I'm not going to spend very much time on whether it's minor because I don't think there's any impacts. There's no bill form impacts, there's no transportation impacts, there's no servicing impacts. All of that's been canvassed. City staff are supportive. And we've actually have the letter in the record from the councillor as well, indicating that he's supportive. And I'll just touch maybe on sometimes the forgotten test about the desirability. Here, I do think that test's important because it's second floor commercial space that, quite frankly, difficult to tenant, will likely remain vacant. It's a problem in the city, but in certain locations like this, that type of space is immensely difficult. What this application does, and I think this is a good thing, is repurpose that for 25 housing units, near transit, in a project. We keep talking about shovel ready. This isn't just shovel ready. I'm trying to think of what you do once you're in the ground, what the right word is instead of ready. The shovels, frankly, are almost about to be put back up on the shelf. And so it's 25 real units that'll be deployed into the market when we don't have as many starts. So I think that test is also well met by the proposal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question.
So I want to just see from the rest of the panelists if either they have a question or they need a presentation. And I see some heads shake. I see all heads shaking, which means you don't need to do anything more than what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Unless you want to.
Mr. Chair, I
don't recommend it, but
no, I think I may have maybe used the question to make my presentation. So
Right,
I won't subject you to anything further.
okay. All right, so you can sit down and we'll go into committee. Thanks for attending. All right, panel members. I see Ms. Sankar has raised her hand. Are you interested in making a motion?
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
All right.
I think that I've seen this development actually develop from scratch, from nothing years ago, and sort of go through various iterations, and quite nicely done, very much needed in the area. And so I kind of liken to the comments made by Councillor Pasternak that this is actually sort of much needed in terms of development, economy, and residential within that area. I also think that it does, the application itself surpasses the emerging policy direction as stated by the applicant. And for all of those reasons, I believe it meets the 4 tests. There's been no objections from the staff or from area residents. So I'll put forward a motion to approve this application as is.
All right, thanks, Ms. Sankar, and Ms. Casson is seconding it. Looking at everybody, all those in favor, and it is unanimous. Congratulations to the applicant. And we will move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is 119 Dinnick Crescent. It's to alter existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition, 3rd-story addition, side 2-story addition, along with rear deck and basement walkout. We have forestry conditions. We have form letters of support. We have a staff report. And the staff report is recommending a a refusal of variance number 2. This includes in terms of variances, it's a proposed north side yard setback, a proposed side yard setback, and floor space index. So item number 8, we have an applicant's agent somewhere in virtual space somewhere? Yes. So put on the applicant's agent, please.
Morning, I'm Drew Laszlo, agent for the owner.
Your address?
Is 193 Rowe Avenue, Toronto.
And do you have any changes to your application before we get going?
Yes, excuse me, thank you for asking. I'd like to, excuse me again, apologize. Modify variance number 2 to be 1 meter. That's the south side setback. So getting rid of the 0.69 meter and increasing that to 1.0 meters. Thank you.
1.0 meters. Okay. I'm presuming that the panel members want to still hear. So you have not removed it. You've reduced it. Is that, or you reduced the impact? Is that right, or have you totally gotten rid of it? I think you have just.
No, we are just
reduced.
increasing it by.
Okay, so I guess we're going to need to hear from you, given we got a negative staff report, right? Don't think. No red.
I'm sure if I may really just. I'm sorry.
Well, let me just canvass. So there's no residents here. There is a negative staff report. There has been a change. Does everybody understand what the change is to the application? So based on that, do people want to hear from the applicant? Yes, they do. Okay, so let's just hear from the applicant. Maybe you could explain this application, please. I mean, you'll have up to.
Yes, of course. Sure. Thank you. So first of all, I just want to voice that we were dealing with the planning department on this. We knew that they had an issue with that south setback. And we started the kind of back and forth as we typically do, you know, trying to work something out with them. They disappeared. And then all of a sudden, we almost feel like we were blindsided by getting the staff report because we were trying to work something out and come to a compromise with them. They would not respond to us. So now that is out of the way. So kind of like the justification for why we feel the 1 meter setback is correct. That's the south setback. First of all, we really in this case would like that 1 meter setback because that leaves us with a 3.2 meter wide interior width for the garage. And that is the minimum required width for the garage to be considered a garage. If that side yard setback increases to more than the 1 meter, which is being proposed today, all of a sudden we would need additional variances associated with the interior width of that garage. So that for us is one of the main reasons that we, of course, are more than happy to go to 1 meter, but that's where that 1 meter setback actually comes from. Excuse me. Other reasons we feel that 1 meter setback is justified is there's an existing carport there right now. That carport goes right to the property line. So we are actually pushing over the side of that carport / garage that we're proposing. That's being pushed over by 1 meter. So we're definitely bettering the situation, if I could put it that way. Also, something the committee should keep in mind is the second floor addition that's being proposed above the garage on the side of the house. We have stepped that back over 20 feet from the main front wall of the house. And that is really to minimize and reduce any impact on the street. So this will really, like, I don't want to say 100% that the sided portion of the addition being proposed today will read as a 1-story, but it will, by stepping the second addition portion that far back, the side addition will read more so as a 1-story addition. so having less impact on the streetscape. We have support from all the neighbors on both sides, which I think is very important in this case. So we have that. There have been numerous past committee approvals, okay, for setbacks much less than the 1 meter which is being proposed today. And actually, just for the committee's information, the house to the south, number 117, Dinnick, the existing side yard setbacks of that house are 1 meter exactly. And that's what we sort of want to end up with on both sides of our house as well. So it's definitely in keeping, and that the house right next door, it has the same setbacks. And I also have a long list of other approvals in the neighborhood of, like I said, setbacks quite a bit less than the 1 meter that's being proposed today. And finally, just because if staff is willing to put up the site plan, just so I can show the minimum impact that that the proposed setback will have, staff, if you could please maybe just zoom in on the garage. That's the kind of the left side. Yeah. You can see in relation to the house, like the number 117, you can see how far back we are. So it is minimal to no impact, you know, that the setback that is being proposed. You know, if you look at that proposed 1-story addition, and if it did conform to the bylaw, or if you know, the committee approves today at the 1 meter setback as opposed to the 1.5, the impact on the streetscape will be negligible, just because of how, you know, how the curve of the street, how everything is oriented, and the relationship to the adjacent house. Thank you.
All right, questions? We do have a question from a panel member. It's Mr. Nipfel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you confirm, I'm assuming that planning hasn't commented on the 1 meter setback proposal, am I correct?
Correct. We would have loved to run it by them, but they would not respond to us.
And just to clarify, the setback on the other side, on the north side, is 1 meter.
Correct. That's in line with the existing dwelling.
Thank you.
Looking at other panel members, if there are questions, Ms. Casson.
No questions. I'm just ready to make a motion.
All right, so we don't have to hear any more from you, Mr. Applicant's agent. We're going to go into committee, and we've got Ms. Casson who would like to make a motion, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am prepared to make a motion for approval of this. I think that the variances are very minor, and the fact that this is taking an existing, very prominent house in Lawrence Park on a prominent street and maintaining the neighborhood character by just building a sensitive addition, I think, to the house. I think it's supportable from that point of view, and I think it's desirable for the neighborhood. So for those reasons, I'm making the motion.
All right, so we've got a motion on the.
Could I clarify that's the revision?
Sorry, yes, the revised, sorry, as modified. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor for approval as modified by the applicant today. And do we have okay, Mr.
Sorry, and I neglected to add forestry condition number 2.
Forestry condition number 2.
Thank you.
And I don't know if that was Mr. Nipfel. Yes.
I'm happy to second that motion.
Okay, so we've got a motion, we've got a seconder. And those in favor of that motion, and it is approved. So congratulations to the applicant agent. Let us move on to item number 9. Let me see how far we've got to go here. We've got, yeah, let's keep moving right along. Item number 9. It's 169. Oh, we do have, you know what? Let's take a break. We'll take, how long do panel members need? We've got maybe a 10, we'll take a 10-minute break. So we'll come back at 11:15. All right? Thank you. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. We're at item 9. Item 9 is 169 Florence Avenue. It's to construct a new detached dwelling. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 variances, proposed height, front exterior main walls, main pedestrian entrance, lot coverage, and 3 stories. There is a forestry report, there is a letter of support, and there is a staff report. Staff report has asked for to modify variance number 1, to modify variance number 2, and recommends refusal of variance number 5 and 6. There's nobody here in opposition, but there is an agent, and the agent is online. Is that right? Okay, so put him forward, please. Or her.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is Marin Zabzuni at 1140 the Queensway.
All right, are you making any changes to the application?
Yes, we are.
Okay, go ahead.
I can list them out. So we put in a waiver after working with planning and providing some supporting. Changes to main wall height, number 1 variance, we're revising to 9.31 meters. Changes to number 2, the main pedestrian entrance, we're revising to 1.40 meters. And changes to number 6, the proposed area of rear platform, the 2nd story, is revised to 15.87 square meters.
All right, so you're keeping variance 5 that they recommended refusal for. You're keeping 6 but reducing it. You are making a change to 1, but not to 8.5 meters as the staff report requested. And you're making a change to number 2, which is in accordance with the staff report. All right.
Yes, I can explain the reasoning.
Why don't you go ahead and make your presentation? You got 5 minutes. Please.
Absolutely. So planning reached out to us a bit late on this, so we tried to address their concerns and accommodate them as much as possible. This dwelling is a contemporary home where we do have a parapet roof, so we do require the main wall height. However, we did revise the main wall height to something less than other approvals in the area. For example, 252 Florence Avenue was approved at 9.69 meters, and we're revised to also 119 Florence Avenue was approved at 9.64 meters, and 167 Harlandale Avenue was approved at 9.46 meters. So we made sure that we reduced to as much as possible while still making sure the roof drainage worked and the floor heights worked. It is a contemporary home, so we do require that parapet height just to make the construction work essentially. But we were able to revise the main pedestrian entrance, which does reduce massing. We were able to accommodate planning specific request to 1.4 meters, which is a substantial drop to the original 2.01 meters. In regards to the number of balconies, so because this is technically counted as a 3-story home, even though it is a 2-story, just because in North York, first floor being above the garage inside the home triggers this variance. So it's more of a technical variance. Because this is counted as a 3-story, when we apply for building permit, they need egress for fire egress to escape in case there's a fire on the 3rd floor. If staff would like to even open up the 2nd floor plan, I can show you that the balcony is extremely small and it's more acting as an egress. And there's barely any room to stand outside. So we feel that it's very minor to maintain that and it doesn't impact any privacy concerns. In terms of the rear deck, which technically counts as a balcony here because of the 3-story perspective. We did reduce that. It is centered in the house. So you can even see the first floor plan, and you'll see that we reduced and provided a privacy screen to ensure that there's adequate privacy and doesn't impede on the neighbor's view. So we feel that this is more of a technical variance and minor in nature. And that's really the gist of the revisions. We made sure that we're approaching this very respectfully and mindfully. We feel that there's a lot of similar built forms that are even larger that's been approved in the area, and we wanted to be respectful of what we proposed. And the homeowners have spoken to neighbors, and they are supportive of this application. So please let me know if you have any questions.
All right, staff or panel, yes, Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps I didn't catch it, but I believe you said that the rear balcony or porch has privacy screening. Where does that show up?
On the left side here, 6 feet high.
It's not on the site plan though, is it? I can't, it's on the floor plan.
It's generally shown on the plans and elevations. So if you
So it should also
maybe look at the side elevation, I think there's a note here too.
So, but it would make sense, I would think, to also include it on your main floor plan. And it's not,
It's
as far
right
as
there,
I can
yes.
see,
There's a note on the plan.
that's where I'm looking for it, and I don't see it there. So
It is there. There's a note.
So you're suggesting that if this were approved, it would be approved with a 6-foot privacy screen along that side of the porch. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Nipfel, are you satisfied or do you have a further question?
No, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, further questions? Okay, let's go into committee. Looking for discussion or motion. Mr. Nipfel.
Mr. Chairman, as pleased as I am to see the initiative to introduce a privacy screen, because I think the proposal that is before us would require that, I'm still persuaded by the planning report on this particular application, which was, if I'm not mistaken, was to refuse variances 5 and 6 relative to the platforms. I still think that's a valid recommendation given issues of privacy and overlook and the other points that were raised in the planning report. So I'm unable to support variants 5 and 6, and I would support the planning department report on this one.
All right, so let me clarify, Mr. Nipfel. So do you want to bring a motion, or do you just want to put that
I'm just making a
out?
comment because I'm not sure what my colleagues feel about this
Okay,
particular
that's fine.
application.
So there were 4 variances of concern by staff,
That's right.
and they recommended refusal of 5 and 6. You are supporting the staff on that
I am, and
position.
they were also suggesting that variance number 1 be 8.5, and the applicant, if I understand, has reduced it to 9.31. It's still not 8.5 as proposed by planning, but I think that's reasonable. I just can't support variance 5 and 6.
Got it. Okay. Other panel members, any discussion on this, or?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think I'm willing to support my colleague, Mr. Nipfel, on his observations. I agree.
Okay, so we have another, and Ms. Casson, I believe, wants to say something, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually don't have a problem with the application as amended. I think that the applicant's rationale for variance 6 or sorry, 5, to have the additional egress on the 3rd floor is reasonable. They have reduced the amount of the 2nd story, which is the main floor platform, so I don't have a problem with the application as amended.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can chime in there, Mr. Chair. I would agree with Ms. Cassens. I don't have an issue in principle with the application as amended in front of us, which I recognize gives us a little bit of a split decision
That's
right
right.
now. But yeah.
And I am going to have to cast the deciding vote, I guess, but we'll need a motion on the floor by somebody. So let me just see what I'm going to do here.
You want to go with the motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion for approval of the application as amended by the applicant. And subject to the privacy screen, the 1.8 meter privacy screen on the, I'd have to look at that, as shown on the drawings. I assume these are the amended drawings that we were looking at by when staff had them up. And forestry condition number 3. Sorry, that's for the platform on the main level or 2nd story.
Okay, so we got a motion. And we
Sorry,
have
so
a
can I just clarify, is it on both sides or
No.
is it one side? If you want, we can put that, we'll put it back up again. Why don't we do, would you like to see it? Yeah, why don't we put it back up again? Then maybe we may need the applicant just to confirm again. Because I think it was part of a revised plan package, if that's helpful.
I think the screening's only shown on the east side on the revised package.
I agree with you, yeah. I think it's only on the east side. It is needed on the west.
I am open to suggestions, but I think the most impact is on the east side, which is why it's shown on that side. So I will say 1.8 meters on the east side if everyone else agrees. So I don't think I actually gave reasons for my motion, but I think that the variances are relatively minor. The fact that they have tried to address staff's concerns, I think they've done that to a great extent. I think it meets the 4 tests in that regard.
Okay, so we got a motion. Just let me understand before we get into a seconder. Maybe I can understand some of the rationale. We've had, because it looks like I may have to cast the deciding vote here, and my understanding from Mr. Nipfel is that he doesn't have a problem with the initial 2 concerns of planning staff, if I'm correct. He has a problem with the last 2. So let me maybe, Ms. Cass, and I can ask you, what's your rationale on those? I know I heard that, but let's just drill down carefully into what those last 2 are. And it is the proposed height of the main pedestrian entrance, right?
No, Mr. Chair, it's
sorry, the recommended variances, okay, so 6, no, that's fine.
It's the number
5
of
and
platforms
6,
and
which
the
are
size.
platforms, right, located on the rear wall is 2, and the proposed area of the rear platform at the second. So if we were going, so basically the difference is really between those platforms and the proposed area of the rear platform, right? And you don't have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with it, Mr. Chair, because the number of platforms, the applicant is requesting an additional platform on the third floor for egress purposes. It's meeting the minimum or maximum amount of a platform size, so I think that's a reasonable request. And I think that the second-story platform, the larger one, they have reduced the size. I didn't agree with the size that was originally proposed, but they have reduced it. It's from the main floor, and I think that we see a lot of these applications by virtue of it being raised above the ground, it creates it at the second story, but I don't think the intent of the bylaw was to restrict platform sizes from the main floor of the house. It's just as a result of the requirement of the bylaw to define this as a second story. So I don't think, and with the privacy screens, I think it's appropriate to have a platform of that size.
Can staff pull up the picture that corresponds to, like there's different plans here, and I'd just like to see it visually. It's hard for me to picture it. Is staff able to do that? Know what I'm saying? Is it the rear?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe pull that up so I can just see it. Okay, well, the ground floor plan, probably, well, I just like to visualize it, like, you know, I tend to, okay, and we're on that, okay, so it's the back there? And it's the...
And on the, if I might, Mr. Chairman, on the left-hand side, there's proposed to be a screen, which Ms. Casson just referred to, and the applicant's proposed. It doesn't show on this drawing. It only shows on the elevation drawings.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So where are the elevation drawings?
If staff could
It's
put up,
best understood from the east elevation.
Yeah,
That's
the
the easiest one to
east-
refer to.
east elevation drawing shows the privacy screen, and then the rear elevation shows the look of the platform.
Okay. All right, so anyway, we've got a motion on the floor, Ms. Casson. I do want to see it, but I cannot quite understand it. What part of it is, what, maybe you can help me here, Mr.
The rear porch, uncovered porch, that's the, there's two off the back. One is at the
off of
third floor,
bedroom and one off of the living room.
the one off the second floor, the main floor. Yeah.
Wait,
You might just go to A8. I think that's the rear elevation. That might be help, Mr. Chair, so you can see where it is.
I'm going to go back to the staff report on this. Oh, I don't even have the right one. You have the drawing there? Okay, let me see it. Oh, good, thank you. All right, so it's really, they don't, you don't like the yellow, you don't like the, Mr. Nipfel, you don't like this, is it the first floor or the second floor that you're?
I think I'm agreeing with the planning department that the revisions, the requested variances result in a privacy concern that wouldn't be there if the variances were non-existent.
Got it.
So that's, in a
Okay.
nutshell, my concern. And
Okay.
The back deck is, in my view, substantially larger than the bylaw calls for.
Yeah.
And the top deck, although not large, it does give vantage point to the adjacent property. So
Got it.
I'm basically in agreement with the planning department's
Right.
analysis.
Okay. All right, so we got a motion on the floor. It's Ms. Cass, and do we have a seconder of that motion? And I would think maybe is there a seconder, Mr. Bartolo? So let's just put it to a vote, because I think everybody's talked about it. So all those in favor of the motion? There's two, so the motion fails. I'm not going to support the motion. So we got another motion on, okay, so Mr. Nipfel, your motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval subject to the changes to variance, the revised application, which has changed variance 1 and variance 2. Variance 5 and 6, I would recommend refusal of, and also subject to forestry condition number 3. And my reasons, without belaboring it, I think are very well dealt with in the planning report, and I believe the planning report in this case should be supported.
All right, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Is it Ms. Sankar? Okay, so we got a seconder, and I will vote in favor of the motion to, so let's just be clear on the motion before it passes. It's to approve the modified application, right, Mr. The modified application. However, a refusal of those two, I believe it's 5 and 6, in accordance with the staff recommendation to refuse them. Is that it? Is there anything else that we need?
Forestry number 3.
And forestry number 3. Okay, so it's clear. So I'll vote in favor of that. And so it is approved, subject to the.
Can you, just for the record, can you show who is opposed, please?
Okay. So it's Mr. Bartolo and Ms. Casson opposed to that motion. All right. So let us move on to, so it is approved, subject to the modification made by the committee. So we're on to item number 10. And item number 10 is 157 Tavistock Road. This is to construct a second-story addition and front porch to the existing dwelling in conjunction with with other interior and exterior alterations. We have a staff report. Staff report recommends that variances number 1, 2, 3 first be refused, and make some other comments. There are 4 variances: proposed front yard setback, proposed platform encroachment, proposed requirements of the platform, and proposed east side yard setback. We have an agent here. We have no residents. So let's turn it over to the agent. Please.
Hello?
Yes. Will you please state your
Hello,
name
John.
and address?
John here. Yeah, John Lorero.
Thank you. And your address?
157 Tavistock Road.
Okay. And are you making any changes to the application?
We recently submitted a revision due to some comments that came late September 6th, and our hearing was the 12th. I didn't see it. The client saw it, let me know Monday morning. We decided to make some revisions to, I guess, support these claims
Do you
that
want to
they've
go through
made.
those revisions?
That's
please.
Sure. We have reduced the porch to be in line with the front exterior step width to avoid anyone to sit and stare onto adjacent properties, increase privacy for adjacent neighbors. The roof over the porch has been removed to reduce massing and decrease water shedding. We have reduced the overall height of the mudroom by 1 feet.
Mr. Chair, could I just
Drop the
interrupt?
roof of the
If
mudroom.
changes are being made, the applicant needs to list the variance number and the number variance they're changing.
All right, so you heard that, right? We want to be clear on the changes that you're making by variance and by the
Okay,
number
so, okay.
that you've changed to, please.
Okay, so we've changed the one we're trying to get rid of here is the canopy encroachment.
But okay, so why don't we?
Number 3,
so
variance number 3.
variance number 3, okay?
Is what we're getting rid of.
You're getting rid of variance number 3.
And because we're not adding the canopy anymore over the porch.
Okay. Are you doing anything about variance number 1?
And variance number 1, no, we kept it the same because we have a supporting approval that was done.
Okay. What about variance number 2? Are you making any change to variance number 2?
And variance number 2, we are not making any changes except for making the platform smaller to decrease
Okay, so how much
privacy issues.
smaller? Can you identify for us on variance number 2, how many meters is the encroachment?
So there is a difference of 8.5 meters. The encroachment is 3.35 meters, but you're allowed to encroach 2.5 meters. So the difference.
How much is it?
Is
okay. Yes. Well,
the
so
platform encroachment allowable is 2.5 meters. We are encroaching 3.35 meters, and the difference is 0.85 meters that we're asking for.
Okay, but
for the porch.
so have you changed anything with variance number 2?
No, I haven't changed anything to the variance, but I have reduced the porch to address planning's issues about privacy.
Okay, so I just want to be clear because they asked for changes to 1, 2, and 3, and you said that you're keeping 1 the same, you're keeping 2 the same, but you're changing 3. Is that right?
I'm trying to get rid of 3
Okay.
and trying to address variance number 1 and 2 in terms of like the privacy and the massing.
Okay, well, why don't we just give him his 5 minutes?
But they're not getting rid of them.
Okay. Why don't you have 5 minutes, why don't you do
Mr. Chair, can I just confirm, is he making, before he goes into his presentation, it's important that he lets the panel know what changes he is making. So far, we've heard, I believe, he's removing variance 3.
That's what I heard.
And that's the only change that I
That's
know.
what I understood. Is that correct, Mr. Agent, that you've removed, let me just get it clear, you have removed variance number 3, but you have kept variance number 1, number 2, and the other variance the same. Is that right? Like, it's a yes or no. Don't give me any.
So we're
explanation.
keeping we're keeping
Yes or no. Like you're keeping.
You said it wrong though. You said it wrong.
Well, okay, so it's no. So then please explain.
So variance 1 we're keeping, variance 2 we're keeping, variance 3 we're getting rid of.
Okay.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. Okay. Variance 4 you're keeping. Okay, so why don't you go ahead? You've got 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, before he
got a
starts, could I clarify one other point? I don't have it on the screen right now, but you submitted revised plans that we got on Tuesday. And I believe you've said that you're taking the canopy off the porch, but I don't believe that's reflected in the plans. Is that correct?
It's not reflected in the original, but it's reflected in the revised.
Okay.
The revised plans I sent, like you said, on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
September 9th.
Do we have those? Okay. Okay, why don't you go ahead and you'll have 5 minutes to explain this, please. Up to 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'll focus on the revisions we made, like explaining them again. Planning came back with some comments last Monday, and the comments were regarding variance number 1 regarding the front yard setback, variance number 2 regarding the platform encroachment into the front yard setback, and variance number 3 regarding the canopy encroachment. They're saying that the intent of regulating front yard setbacks is to ensure consistent streetscape, maintain the pedestrian realm, and provide sufficient open space for the site stormwater management. And to address that comment, we have attached a supporting document property address 97 Nash Drive, who was approved for a front yard setback of 5.41 meters. And they had a minimum front yard setback of 7.5, which is very similar to ours. And the difference that they were accepted was 2.09 meters. And our difference that we're asking for is 2.35 meters difference. So we're using that as a supporting document to keep variance number 1. And variance number 2, the porch encroaches 3.35 meters into the required front yard setback encroachment. This also so they're saying that this the regulation on the platform encroaches is meant to ensure sufficient separation from lot lines and prevent privacy and overlook issues for adjacent properties. The proposed canopies encroachment also raises concern regarding privacy and massing, which could impact neighboring properties. The way we're addressing that is that we just reduced the width of the front porch, so that no one can really hang out on the porch and like go to the edge of the mudroom and like look over. No one can really see anyone standing on the porch from neighboring properties. That's what we're trying to get rid of, the privacy issue that they're stating about the platform. So we reduced the width of the platform to stay within the width of the stair, as opposed to having a longer porch to be able to, I guess, sit on the porch. Now you're not even able to sit on the porch. And then we reduced the mudroom height because, again, massing issues were brought up about the enclosed porch. And we've gotten rid of the canopy, which over the front porch, which removes variance number 3. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, do we have questions from the panel? I don't see any questions, so let's go into committee. And is there any comment that anybody wants to make in committee? Mr. Nepval?
No, sorry.
No, you don't have.
Mr. Chair, just real quick on this one. I think it's got a little convoluted here. I don't agree with the staff's recommendation that it creates a privacy overlook issue. Most of the street has quite wide, like sit-in balconies along and across the street there's no concerns because it's a public park actually. I think the only part that seems to not conform here is just the portion of the porch that sticks out into the setback. So the balance of the house seems to be within the setback. So I agree. It juts out into the front yard setback. I'm not inclined to agree that there's any privacy issue. And I think we're actually trying to encourage people to sit on their front porch and be part of the neighborhood, not hide away inside so much. So I think that's a little counterintuitive, but that's just me.
Okay, so we have one comment that is relatively favorable. Do we have any other comments on the application? Ms. Casson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with my colleague on that description. I think the report is ignoring the fact that we do want people sitting on the porch. I don't think there's a privacy issue at all. I think that the encroachments in the front yard setback are to the porch only, so I would tie it to the site plan, substantially in accordance with the site plan. But other than that, I don't think it's a problem to support something like this.
Is that a motion?
We don't have a motion. We haven't heard from you. Do you have any comments?
I agree with what's been said by both of my colleagues. I don't agree with the planning department in this particular case, and I don't think that what's proposed is out of keeping with the neighborhood at all.
Okay, so let's go with a motion then, unless,
May I ask one question?
no. Who's that? The
I just have,
sorry.
no, that's me.
Oh,
Mr. Chair.
I didn't know. I thought it was somebody
Yeah,
else.
no worries.
You could always ask a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate that. To the agent, Mr. Applicant there, would you want to revert back to your original plan and not
Well,
the amended plans?
Let's
that were
come out
sent
of
in?
committee for a second. So let's come out of committee and you can ask him a question.
enough.
Okay. So we're gonna just come out of committee. Mr. Bartolo has a question for the applicant. Mr. Applicant, please listen carefully. Mr. Bartolo, go ahead.
Right, so I think you've heard the discussion here, Mr. Applicant, and
Yes, correct.
right, so you've modified these plans because of the comments of the planning department. Fine, I understand that, but your desire is for the original set of plans that you submitted prior to the ones from last week with the open porch that you can see out of, correct? That's what you actually want. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to know,
Okay, thank you.
unless my colleagues have anything.
Let's go back into committee. And Mr. Bartolo, do you have any further comments that you'd like to share with us, or do you want to bring a motion?
Oh, I can put forward a motion there,
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead.
whenever everybody's ready. Okay, so in understanding this application, I am going to have to disagree with the comments from the planning department. I do think it's relatively minor. The only part that's into the setback is the proposed front porch. I don't think enclosing it keeps in character with the neighborhood, and I think it's counter to the look and desirability of the neighborhood. So therefore, I will put forward a motion to approve this application as submitted in the original proposal and with no conditions.
No, but with the, as modified by the applicant.
No.
Oh, you're putting forward the.
No, not as modified by the applicant.
Not as modified by the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Mr. Nipfel. Are you seconding that, or
Yes,
you
I'm
you
pleased to
are
second that.
you are seconding it? So it's the original one without the modification. We got the motion. We've got the seconder. Is there anybody who wants to talk about that? Okay, so those in favor of that? And it's carried. All right, let us go on to the next one. The next one is item number 11, which is 49 Roselawn Avenue. This is to permit an office use at existing dwelling with a second story east to west addition, linking it to 47 Roselawn. There's 7 variances. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 letters of support. You have an arborist report. You have a staff report, which is negative. I believe it's a negative report. We've got some of these variances include proposed rear platform, distance from the west side lot, distance from the east side lot, office uses are proposed, and minimum setback on the west side, so, and then it goes on. So we do have a neighbor here, a virtual neighbor, and we have the applicant's agent in person. So, would you please state your name and your address?
Thank you, sir. My name's Christopher Tanzola. I'm the lawyer on behalf of the applicant. I provided my address and contact information to the committee, but it's 5255 Yonge Street, Suite 1101. And
Okay.
sir, I just wanted to be clear that this application for 49 is paired with the application for 47, which is the next one on the agenda.
Okay, so that's a good point. I'll read that one out as well. But, okay, well, why don't I read 40, it's because we're doing 49 and 47, so it is 11 and 12. I'll read that out as well, okay? So for 47, since they're together, this is also to permit an office use of the existing dwelling with a second story east to west linking to 49 Roselawn. And there are 7 variances here. And there are also, as similar, you've got the same, you got 6 letters of support, you got an arborist report, you've got a transportation report, which you have on both. You have the staff report, which is negative, and it includes, we can get to that. But in this case, the proposed rear platform is slightly different measurements, but it's from the east side lot and from the west side lot, and the office uses is a key here. So let's go back to the applicant, the agent for the applicant, and ask if you have made any changes, first of all, because you've said your name and address, so the question is, do you have changes that you want to present to us before you get going?
No, sir, there's no changes to the application, but we're quite prepared to address the staff report.
Okay. So, and let me see, we've got,
And to that, sir, if I could add, when we received the staff report late last week, we did prepare a response that was submitted to the committee earlier this week, and I just wanted to know whether or not the committee had an opportunity to review that response.
I don't,
It was a letter from us dated September 9th from my firm Overland.
let me see.
It does appear on the Application Information Center, but I don't know exactly the timing for when it would have come in. We responded as soon as we could to the staff
September
report.
9th, was it?
There, it's on the screen now, thank you. So in that letter, we did provide a very detailed response to the staff report.
Let me just make sure I have it up in case I need it. This is, where would this be filed, staff? Is this under, late? Let me see if I've got this. Well, I mean, it might help if I have it, and I don't know if I do. Yeah, okay. Because I review everything, but yeah, there's so many documents. Let me just see what I reviewed already.
Mr.
Well,
Chairman,
I don't
was
think
the
I
applicant not
got
gonna
it.
Deal with the same argument
Yeah.
in person anyway?
Yeah.
He said he was going to.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, why don't you go ahead? We'll give you 5 minutes. You know, hopefully you can explain, because they're the same, right? The two are the same. So you have.
Sorry, I missed the question, sir.
So, well, why don't you go ahead? You have 5 minutes, really. You've got 2 applications, so I'll be lenient on you if you need more than the 5.
It would be appreciated if I could have a little more since we are dealing with the two. And
Yeah.
I did hear that my letter may not have been read. There is some detail in it. So if I could have a little leniency on the time, I'd very much appreciate that.
I'll be accommodating, but try to keep it within 5. But if you need more, just keep going.
Much appreciated, sir.
You know what? If you go to 10, then for sure I'm cutting you off. Okay.
That sounds fair to me, sir. We did also have a visual package that we had submitted, and it would be helpful if those visuals were up on the screen. I may make reference to a couple page numbers in them. Again, there it is. Thank you very much. I wonder if we could just start at page 3, which provides just a picture of the property before I start speaking, because I think that'll help set the scene.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much, members of the committee. My client is proposing to turn the 2 single-family homes that you see on the screen before you at 47 and 49 Roselawn into an office building. The 2 buildings would be paired together by a new link addition at the second story between the two buildings, and that is the only new construction that's proposed for the buildings, with the exception of some new rear stairs, which give rise to a couple of the variances for each of the two properties. And there are diagrams in the materials that do help to explain those kind of technical variances, if I can say that. The proposal provides for on-site parking, and it provides for on-site bike parking. The size of the office will accommodate a staff of about 10 to 12 for my client's land use planning consulting firm. And it is in the heart of the Yonge Eglinton area. It's called the Montgomery Square area. It is just north of the Yonge Eglinton intersection, and it is identified in the planning documents as the Montgomery Square special area. It is called the civic heart of Yonge and Eglinton. And what my client is proposing to do is to take two underused residential properties and turn them into office space, very close to transit, very close to all the amenities of Yonge and Eglinton. And I found it interesting, we had an earlier presentation today where my friend David Bronsko was seeking to remove some office space, and I understand there's that reality, but here we have an applicant who actually wants to bring office space to Yonge Eglinton, where it's close to transit and where it's close to amenities and the kind of complete community that we keep talking about in our planning documents. My client has widespread support from the neighbors. There are numerous letters of support from the immediately abutting neighbors, the neighbors across the street, and others within the area, and I think that should be taken into account by the committee. Because of the very minor physical change to the property, the link between the two buildings, which if you went to page 11 of the visuals, you could see. If I can get you there. You see that area in red or pink is the new construction that's proposed just to join the two buildings, so workers in one part of the office wouldn't have to go outside to get to the other part of the office. That's internal to the site. It will have no impact on the surrounding community. There are a number of diagrams that talk about the platform variances at the rear, the side yard setbacks for the existing houses that require variances. Oh, we got something up on the screen. If we get a pause on the time there. I appreciate it. If you could quickly scroll through drawings 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, they locate where the variances are occurring. You'll see on the screen there for each of the houses, the rear steps that are being added are slightly too close to the property line, given that this would be a commercial building as opposed to a residential building, notwithstanding it maintains its residential form. So variances are required for those setbacks. If you could page ahead. This is demonstrating the conversion. So variance number 3 in each application is a request to allow an office use, and so they've tried to illustrate that by just showing the floor plans. If you could page ahead. This is the variance for the side yard setbacks. So for the existing buildings, they are maintaining their existing exterior setbacks to the neighboring properties. And then because of the building of this Skylink, if we can call it that, between the two properties, there's actually a 0 setback for each of the properties because the new construction is spanning across the opening between the two properties. If you could page ahead. There's a variance required for accessible parking spaces. Accessible parking spaces aren't proposed here. There are 2 existing parking pads in the front. Right now, the entirety of the rear yard is paved surface area, and the proposal is to put 2 regular parking spaces in the rear yard. If we could page ahead. And the proposal is to have 10 bike parking spaces. The requirement of the bylaw would require those 10 bike parking spaces to be located inside the building. Here we're proposing that they'll be located in the rear yard. So those are the variances that are before you. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the more technical ones. The one that I want to focus on is the office variance, because that's the one that really forms the basis of city staff's comments. And I would really like to say the staff report that you have in front of you is a 1-page report that in my mind doesn't do much more than tell you what the existing land use designation is for the property. And it tells you that the land use designation is neighborhood A in the Yonge Eglinton secondary plan. And then it tells you that office is not one of the permitted uses in that designation. It goes on to tell you that the zoning is a residential zone and that office is not permitted in a residential zone. That's really all the report says. It doesn't provide you with analysis. It doesn't provide you with context. It doesn't provide you with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. It doesn't provide you with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. And so I really want to focus on that, and I hope that you'll have questions for me on that. Because what the report doesn't talk to you about is the emerging initiatives that the City of Toronto has taken to try and figure out ways to reinvest in our neighborhoods, to make them more complete communities by allowing certain forms of non-residential uses that don't disturb the residential function of the neighborhood to come into the community and in some cases revitalize and re-energize the community. This property is located very close to Yonge Street. It does have residential designation, it does have residential zoning, but it is in a block that is rapidly reinvesting. There are approvals for 30 and 20-story towers immediately to the east of this property. There's approvals for a 27-story tower immediately south of the property. The immediately abutting property has provided a brand new park that this office building would side onto. And in the past, it's clear that this property, with its entirely paved rear yard and its front vestibule, if we could go back to page 3, if I could ask that, the front vestibule of 47 Roselawn, page 3, excuse me, where the actual photograph. You can see that it is a commercial entrance. So at some point in the past, that building has been used for commercial purposes. And so what my client is asking is to look at the context, not just the land use designation. And beyond that, the official plan includes a new official plan amendment from 2022, OPA 612. And OPA 612 is not mentioned in the planning staff report. OPA 612 said that in the City of Toronto generally, in neighborhood areas, we are going to allow office uses among other non-residential uses within residential areas, and we are not going to require that those applications necessarily require a zoning bylaw amendment to achieve them. The reports that accompanied OPA 612 contemplated that minor variance could be an appropriate way for some small-scale reinvestment that wouldn't be onerous to an applicant, that wouldn't put them through the ringer, if I can call it that, of official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments.
Mr. Chair, his time is up.
Yeah.
I'm leaning on my additional time.
I'm giving him because he's got 2 applications really, so let him keep going.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So OPA 612 is in effect. It comes later than the Yonge-Eglinton Secondary Plan. So the Yonge-Eglinton Secondary Plan has not yet caught up to OPA 612. And notwithstanding that, within the neighborhoods A designation that applies to the site, it is not the case that only residential uses are permitted, and it is not the case that office uses are prohibited. There is a list of permitted uses that includes institutional uses, schools, as well as residential, and there is no specific prohibition on office uses. So I'm asking the committee to consider the general intent and purpose of that designation rather than only the literal words of that designation. So an institutional use could have ancillary offices associated with it. A school very likely has offices associated with it. And if we look at the idea that we are able to have more than just residential uses on these properties, I think that gets to the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Furthermore, the site's located in the PMTSA, Protected Major Transit Station Area, not yet approved by the province, but approved by the City of Toronto. That recognizes that these are lands close to transit. These are lands where we want reinvestment and redevelopment to occur, where we look to put new businesses, where we look to put office workers that are going to be close to transit, close to bike paths, and able to make use of the amenity of the area. It's exactly the kind of development that we want in this location, and it has no impact on the surrounding neighborhood because my client's keeping the existing buildings that are on the site. He just wants to change the use to an office use. With respect to the general intent purpose of the zoning bylaw is there to deal with compatibility with neighboring properties, to deal with setbacks, to deal with externalities, to deal with the size and bulk and massing of a building. We're not changing any of that. The sky bridge that we're including is only between the 2 properties. It'll have no impact on anyone else. The front and rear porches, the variances are required because they're serving a non-residential building, not because they're anything that's out of the ordinary. Same with the side yard setbacks. With respect to the test of desirability, I go back to what my friend David Bronskill said when he was up here. It's a test that we need to consider more. This is a very...
15 seconds.
Thank you. It's a very desirable form of development in the location. And with respect to minor, we've got the letters of support from the neighbors. There are no externalities, and there's no externalities that are even suggested in a letter from planning staff.
Okay.
I'd love to answer some questions.
Do we have questions? Just bear with us because I think you're going to get some questions. I have questions from the panel members that are online, perhaps, while Ms. Casson is formulating her question. No? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So OPA 612 is approved, you said, in effect, but
Yes.
there are further studies going on as part of EHON to look at, is it specific uses within that area? So 612, as I understand it, doesn't rule out other uses within residential areas. Is that correct?
That's correct. OPA 612, my précis of it is that it acknowledged that there could be more uses, and it did contemplate further studies. What it did in particular for this application is it took away the specific requirement that certain uses would only be allowed subject to a zoning bylaw amendment. So that was the first step of OPA 612. The further study that they're going to do, they may actually recommend a list of permitted zoning uses in certain areas, and they may very well, for an area like this, recommend that office uses are permitted. But we don't know when exactly that's going to be in effect. We don't know if it'll be under appeal. In the meantime, we have an applicant saying, I would like to take advantage of the idea that you don't need to proceed by way of official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for everything. We have tools in the Planning Act that allow us to assess a very compact application like this one. And so OPA 612 did open the door, so to speak, for a minor variance to allow this kind of use.
And just out of curiosity, are home occupations permitted currently?
I do believe that home occupations are permitted in this area and would have been permitted. I can't say whether I know whether they're permitted by the zoning, but they would be permitted by the official plan designation.
Okay, thank you.
And the other, if I could build on that with respect to official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment versus minor variance. My client did at one point go in and have a PAC meeting with the city for a much grander project for this site. It would still have been an office building, but it would have been a much grander project for the site. The staff reviewed that and said that they could support office in principle for this site, but they provided a checklist of all the applications and reports that would be required for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment. I'm sure you can imagine the kinds of things that show up on that list: archaeological studies, servicing reports, hydrogeological assessments. They go well beyond the scope of what this project is to transform two existing households into an office space. And so my client, with the knowledge that he would be put through an official plan amendment process and a zoning bylaw process that could take years and could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, scaled back his proposal to say, okay, I don't need the big expansion to this site, but I would like to try and get this use approved within the existing buildings. And I do think that is a proper approach to understanding the difference between an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment process, and a minor variance process.
I've got questions. I don't know if I should wait until you've had a chance to hear the resident. There is a resident somewhere, right? There is no resident? There's somebody on my list.
Yeah, we reached out, Mr. Chair, and they don't wish to speak. They just wanted to view online.
Oh, okay, so there's nobody here in opposition. All right, so I guess I will ask my questions, because I'm struggling with this a little bit, and I although, you know, it's not likely that I'll have to vote. I might have to, and just to provide some guidance to the other panel members. First of all, so this is on the west side of Yonge Street, right? And what is just to the east of this property?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. We actually have some photographs of that. I can tell you that just to the east of it is currently a parking lot that is under construction for new towers that will be built closer to Yonge Street, and the immediately abutting land will be turned into a public park for the City of Toronto.
The immediate abutting land will be a public.
Yeah, I wonder if we can take a look at it.
Was it on there? It's on the survey. I just didn't, because I went to Google and it wasn't clear to me.
It's either page 1 or page 22 of the visuals. One's zoomed in too far and one's zoomed in too close. But maybe I could take you to page 1 of the visuals. Or no, 2. Sorry, thank you, sir. Number 2, page 2 would be the best one. And if we could zoom in on it a little bit. So we're looking south here, so north is at the bottom of the screen. So we're looking back towards the Yonge-Eglinton intersection. The site's outlined in orange, and you can see the expansive parking area to the east of the site as you get closer to Yonge Street. That's a former commercial parking lot. It's going to be changed into a development containing 27 and 30-story towers, and then a public park in the area that is currently seen as paved.
The 27-story, those are residential.
Those are residential buildings, yes. Sorry, they're mixed-use building. They'll have commercial uses.
So they'll have some commercial use on the main floor, but is there, your client wants to create office space, right?
Office, yeah.
Is there office space in the other one as well?
I understand that there is office space in it. It's a mixed-use proposal. I don't know who the tenants are or anything like that, but it's part of, if I could say, the whole idea of Yonge and Eglinton is that we're bringing these uses together because we've poured billions of dollars into the ground in subways.
Right, okay.
And to the west? Is that a detached dwelling?
To the west is a detached dwelling. They have provided a letter of support. They are one of the people that have written in support. 54? 57 Roselawn has provided a letter of support.
What is your, I mean, if we approve this, what's your client is in the planner? What's
Land use planning consultant, sir.
Land use planning consultant.
Not to bring it too close to home.
Right.
And my client is here, Mr. Feranchik, if were questions about the specific office use.
Right. So I don't really, I have some concerns and some other personal, because I always love to say that I'm from Don Bells, but I used to work at Yonge and Eglinton. I know Yonge and Eglinton really, really well. And I am, like, personally, I have some concern about the nature of the way Yonge and Eglinton always had a lot of high rises, but it always had a lot of office space too. And I don't think I think the balance is tipped, and not in a good way.
Yep.
And you're trying to change that, which I like, or to balance it. So I like that, but I'm concerned about the 4 tests.
If there were questions about the 4 tests that I didn't have a chance to go into, I'd love to be able to address them further. One thing I will say is, although this is a residential property and this is a residential designation, this block bounded by duplex and Roselawn, Yonge, and Montgomery to the south is almost entirely redeveloped for things that are not single-family homes. There are only 4 single-family properties left in this block. 2 of them are the ones that are before you today. A third is the person who's provided a letter of support, and the 4th is someone who was advised of the application and is not taking a position on it. So that's all that's left in the entire block bounded by the 4 streets.
Yeah, but I still feel like, the general intent of the zoning bylaw, the general intent of the official plan, you're sort of asking us to do, so even though I have my personal feelings about what that neighborhood might be, I'm not an elected member of council, and I don't really get to decide bigger issues. I'm only here on the Committee of Adjustment.
Yeah.
We're here to discuss, or to approve minor issues, and then we got a negative staff report, right? Because effectively what they're saying is this is bigger than what committee really should deal with. This is a bigger, well, I know you're shaking your head, but I think that's what staff is
just
saying.
hoping I get a chance to respond.
So
sir.
I'm giving you a chance to kind of address the concerns I have, because even though I think that the balance of this neighborhood is maybe shifted, so let me tell you another thing that I'm concerned about, and that is that you're putting in, so everything is supposed to be, we should be looking at residential, more density and so forth, and this is taking away from a residential use to an office use, right? So that I'm concerned is a policy issue that maybe we don't have the authority to decide. Yes. So anyway, you've heard me.
Sure.
You want to spend a few seconds just addressing those, and then we'll go into committee.
Happy to, thank you, sir. In terms of the residential versus office use, I think both uses are directed to these locations. In particular, I mentioned this is a PMTSA, a protected major transit station area. That has minimum jobs and residential requirements, and those are provincial policies. And certainly the thrust of the secondary plan, the Yonge Eglinton secondary plan, is to draw all those uses to this area, not just residential. Yes, we hear about the need for residential now in the newspaper, and we hear about the diminishing office market, but the thrust of the policy documents is still to encourage these mix of uses in places where people do not need to drive to things. They're going to be steps from the subway. They're going to be at Yonge and Eglinton already. They're going to be able to bike here. That to me is the thrust of the documents. In terms of your jurisdiction, sir, I'd put it to you, your jurisdiction is 100% to make a decision about whether you think this is within the general intent and purpose of the official plan. And I think the general part of that allows you to look beyond the specifics of the land use designation, which in my submission is all that the planning report has done. And you've got as much authority as the city council does to consider whether or not this application meets the general intent and purpose. And so that's why it's my encouragement to take us beyond just the list of permitted uses in the official plan, because I think if we just look at the list of permitted uses, we are not looking at the general intent and purpose of the official plan. We're actually closing our eyes to the general intent and purpose of the official plan. We're in some ways taking a shortcut by saying, well, there's a handy dandy list of 5 uses here. I don't want to think about them beyond that.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would just also comment that I don't think you have to worry about there being not enough residential in this area. It's being pushed to the boundary, and we've seen several applications that have previously been approved by council that have come back asking for additional density. So from a residential density point of view, I don't really see any problem. I also don't see a problem with future redevelopment of the lands because there's only these 2 properties and the property to the west that are left, which would not be able to support a tower from my perspective anyway. I am struggling with the general intent of the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
I think that is where I'm struggling the most on this application. So maybe you could just spend a little time on that.
Yeah. I think the key that I'd like to impress on you for the general intent of the zoning bylaw is, again, to ask you to look beyond the list of permitted uses. This is not a case where we have a prohibited use that we're trying to implement. So it's not, there are some cases out there where the problem is there's a prohibited use in the zoning bylaw. So here we just have a list of permitted uses, and it includes things that go beyond just residential. So there's a contemplation that something beyond residential is permitted here. For example, as I said, there are institutional uses that are permitted. There's also, for example, a fire station or an ambulance station. So there's already a contemplation that in this zone and on this street and in this location, you may have more activity than you might normally think about on just a residential street where you only had residential houses. And given its proximity to Yonge Street, I would think that that's, sorry, I keep doing that, part of the fabric of this neighborhood is you can expect a more intense form of development, and that's recognized by the list of permitted uses in the zoning. The other thing that a zoning bylaw does or tries to do is to regulate the built form so that your buildings are only of a certain height so that they have a relationship to the other buildings within the neighborhood. The buildings are set back in a certain way so that they're not causing undue external impacts on neighboring properties. The buildings have sufficient parking. The buildings have sufficient bike parking in this case. The buildings have appropriate amount of landscaping so that the neighborhood feel is consistent through the neighborhood. And here, because we are taking the existing buildings and we are not changing them except for the Sky Bridge, and we are improving that building stock to make it a nice office and leaving it the way it is so that that streetscape that we showed in the first picture is not going to be changed by this application, those built form directives of the official plan and the anticipated size of a building and the way the building interacts with the street and the way the building interacts with its rear yard neighbors and its side yard neighbors, none of that is being challenged. Again, it comes down to it's not in the list of permitted uses, but at the same time, it is not a prohibited use, and there is more than just residential that's contemplated even within the zoning.
Okay, other questions? Otherwise, let's go into committee. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the extra time. Thank you.
All right, panel members, any discussion on this? Nobody wants to talk? What does anybody think about the fact, like you can sit down because we're in committee, but thank you. What does anybody think about the fact, like there's this bypass, like the overhead, pardon? The walkway. Does anybody have any comments on that in the panel?
I don't think there's any issues with the little bridge over top. They own both pieces of land. If they wanted to fill in the entire center with building, they effectively could. It'll get merged on title into one plot. So
Okay.
I don't see any issues with that. It's atypical, but if they don't do that, then they won't be able to access their parking, and then we'll have an even bigger issue with the application, for example.
Okay.
I mean, in principle, I don't have issues with what's being contemplated here. I think the location for an office use is fine when we consider like the neighborhood context. There's some quite large buildings that are going up next to it. There's a park that's going up adjacent to it. It's quite close to Yonge Street, right? if we're going to be expanding employment lands in buildings that are beyond just massive towers and giving opportunities for some other like small business type applications and like ventures of that nature, I think we have to be somewhat accommodating to them as well. I don't think an office use is gonna have a negative impact on the local neighborhood. And if we're not going to allow the expansion of some employment lands here, then I'm not sure where we're going to do it, to be honest, right? And I do agree with the applicant's argument that there is a contemplation of some other uses. And if you had another use that's permitted, like the school, like all schools have office administrative aspects to them. So ultimately, I don't see a negative impact on the.
You're frozen.
Or we.
Somebody from planning heard what he was saying and they just cut him off.
Hopefully you caught that.
Okay,
because,
so you're
I'm sure it was
Mr.
extremely
Bartolo,
articulate and well
you're
formed.
for the last minute, your video froze and we couldn't hear you. So maybe you just want to summarize the last maybe 30 seconds of
okay.
what you were trying to say. Sorry.
No problem. So, like I said, I think the adjacent land uses are compatible with what's being proposed here. I think it's an appropriate location for some employment land intensification, although I don't think it's overly intense. I don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood, and generally speaking, this is an area that we want jobs along that transportation corridor. And I do agree with the argument that other uses have been contemplated that would have an office component to them. So for those reasons, I think I can support this application.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about this, or does somebody want to bring a motion? What do we want to do here?
I just want to raise this. I mean, could there be a possibility that it does go through? Because I mean, I really do have a concern around general intent and purpose. But even if it is used just as office space, couldn't they ordinarily come back later and up the ante on something else? I mean, that's where I feel, respect what's already there and what planning and expertise have had to say, despite some of the logical reasons that they've put forward. I'm really tossing with this one. So I don't know if anybody else has another opinion or how they feel.
Sorry, could you just elaborate on what you mean by up the ante on? I didn't quite follow your argument there.
Yeah, like, I mean, could they possibly come in with something else saying, look, we've already now been, approved for office space, and it's not that much detrimental. As my colleague said, it's close to Yonge Street. This being, something that could be easily accepted. Could they come back later with another type of business? That's absolutely not, and saying, well, it's already been sort of accepted for this. Can we move into another realm? I mean, I think in my years of history, I've seen people sort of take it to one level and then come back years later with something else, using that as the precedent. So that concerns me.
I think your concern is well founded. My argument counter to that would be I wouldn't say no to something that we think is reasonable because somebody may do something unreasonable in the future. Like, if this was going to be a heavy industrial, purpose, or like a mechanic paint shop or something like that, I think we'd understand that that's probably not appropriate to have in that location, in that kind of semi-neighborhood, semi-office type thing. So, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. People slowly creep into undesirable land uses over time by building on previous minor variances or policy or whatever. I get it. You're not wrong, but I wouldn't say no to somebody today who's proposing something reasonable because somebody in the future might do something unreasonable.
But I think what Ms. Sankar is saying is along the lines of what I was saying, my concern, right? That this is really, this is really pushing it to what the committee does. This is not a typical application that we get. And we got a negative staff report because of that. But on the other hand, so this is where, like, if I had to make this decision, and I may if we're tied, like, I'm a little concerned about how far we go on whether something is minor or not. And I think what Ms. Sankar is saying is that, you know, there's broader implications of an approval here, which to me means it may not be totally minor. But I kind of like the idea because because on the other hand, you know, when I know what this area has, and the mix has changed so significantly it's always significantly residential, but with these massive towers, and there hasn't been really commercial building in that area, except maybe the mixed use that's going, but it's probably a very small part. So even if we kind of like it, and I think maybe we do, I have some concerns because I'm somewhat conservative on what we should do. So I'm kind of sort of torn between what both of you have said, and I did want to sort of support what Ms. Sankar is saying, because I think that that's the crux of our decision, is what is the long-term implication of what we're doing, not just for this particular piece of land, but within the scope of our authority and what we're doing, even if we like this application, which, you know, I kind of do like. So I don't know if anybody else has anything, Ms. Gasson.
I was just going to respond that I don't have a concern with a future use being changed or proposed. If we were to approve this for office for now, they would have to reapply to change that use to, say, retail, and would that be such a big deal? I'm not really sure. I think, you know, the problem with these properties is they've been left out of the consolidation of lands of the rest of the block. So what do you do with them? There are 3 houses left on the block. What are they going to be eventually? Yes, you could tear down the 2 houses and maybe combine it with the remaining residential and create a new building from it. You could do a small office building. There are a number of things that could be done. It could also be converted back to residential. If somebody had the idea for some sort of, I don't know, multiplex or something like that. But I am disappointed in the staff report not addressing OPA 612, because I think that would have been helpful to have staff's interpretation of that. We are left without that, so I can understand the concern of the committee members. But I kind of have to agree with Mr. Bartolo on this. I think the only thing I was really struggling with from a approval point of view is the zoning bylaw and the intent of the zoning bylaw, and I think I can probably get my head around that there are other non-residential uses permitted in residential areas. Home occupations are permitted. We see applications where home occupation's been approved and then gets converted to a permanent office use. That's very common too. So I think from that point of view, from a neighborhood impact, it absolutely has very little impact on the neighborhood, and maintains the sort of historical character of the neighborhood by maintaining the houses on the property in that form, even though the use of them will be different. So not to ramble on, I don't share the same concerns with Ms. Sankar.
Mr. Nipfel, you're the only one that has really had a
Well,
lot.
Mr. Chairman, I, like my colleagues, I really had some difficulty with this application, and the issue was trying to determine whether in fact it complied with the intent and purpose of the official plan and the bylaw. I'm satisfied from the information that's been provided, and agree with the applicant that the planning report could have been a bit more exhaustive, but the information that's been provided clearly sets a picture that this kind of use is intended, and eventually would occur through a zoning bylaw or a official plan amendment or both. For all of the reasons that Mr. Botola mentions, I support the application. I think it is a small introduction into an area that's actually very much going in this direction at the present time. I welcome the fact that this is being undertaken in existing buildings. As you, Mr. Chairman, indicated, Young Eglinton has become a town of towers and poor pedestrian activity and so forth. I think that by maintaining the existing buildings, in this case, you're maintaining some of the quality that was there while still allowing the additional office uses. So not wanting to belabor the issue, I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Botola, and I'd be happy to support a motion which I think he was about to make.
So why don't we go back to him, Mr. Bertolo? Why don't you make the motion?
Yeah, no problem, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So through you, I'll put forward a motion to approve this application without condition. I think we've had an exhaustive conversation on it, but for all of the reasons mentioned previously and its proximity to Yonge Street and the adjacent uses and the low impact on the neighborhood, I think it's appropriate, and therefore I'll put forward that motion for approval.
Why don't I go back to you, Mr. Nipfel is second again. So all those in favor? Anybody opposed? We got one opposed, 3 in favor. I don't have to vote, so I'm not going to vote. And it's approved. So congratulations. And we will, thank you. Thank you. So let's deal with
Mr. Chair, there's a second one.
So there's a second, that's right. We approved it all as one. So let's just, so we really have, so that was item number 11, I think, just to be clear. Let's bring the same motion for item number 12. Mr. Bertolo, want to do that just for the benefit of?
Yes, no problem, Mr. Chair. For all of the reasons previously stated, I will put forward a motion to approve application number 12 for 47 Roselawn Avenue.
Mr. Nipfel, let's do your seconder, and let's vote, hopefully the same people voting the same way, and those opposed, the same people the same way, and I don't have to vote, so I won't. And now we have approved both 11 and 12. Congratulations to the applicant, and we can move on to item number 13. Thank you. Item number 13 is 38 Alexandra Wood is to construct a new 2-story dwelling. There's 6 variances, and there's an arborist report, a forestry report, 2 letters of support, a ravine report, a staff report. Staff have conditions as part of their report, and that is that they be substantially in accordance with the site plan. There are 6 variances. They include proposed front yard setback, proposed building length, proposed building depth, and so forth. Do we have the applicant's agent anywhere, virtually?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. State your name, state your address.
Yes, my name is Michael Taylor. I'm a partner at Taylor Smythe Architects, and the address is 245 Davenport Road, Toronto.
All right. Are there any changes to your application?
There are no changes, but I would like to point out that we have 9 letters of support.
Okay.
From all the surrounding neighbors.
Okay. Thank you. So before you get going here, let me just look at my panel members to see if they so we have a question from the panel members. Before we get into, we're going to see whether we need a presentation, but Ms. Casson has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at the location map, and I'm trying to understand. It looks like 2 properties combined. Is that? I don't know if you have the location map.
It's one property. It's one property under our single ownership. They're not being. They are.
So they're merged. It just looks the way it's identified.
They may have been merged previously.
Except the boundary overlaps onto the neighbor's house. So that's what I'm struggling with. Do you see on the?
Yes, I see that. Yeah. Perhaps it would be better to look at the site plan that's in the AIC. So that shows the actual perimeter of the site with the property line.
Is the property next door a new house? Perhaps maybe there was an older house and, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make any difference. It's just confusing.
Yeah, I know, I can see that. That house was built a number of years ago. It's not an old house, but it's probably 20 years old, maybe.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just deal with the site plan. I'm not sure the location map was correct, but I won't let that be a stumbling block because we're not approving the location map, so that's okay. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I think that I spoke, did I say that there were 6 variances? I think I didn't get the number of there's a lot of variances. So.
There's 6 variances, yes, sir.
There's 6 variances, was I right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, I think it was amended since the notice, well, whatever. Do we have more questions?
We haven't made any changes.
No? Okay. What am I looking at here? Maybe I'm looking at something else. But anyway, I pulled it off as 6 before. So do we have any other questions of the applicant? Let me just take a look at my video screen for the, okay. So nobody, do we need to hear from the applicant? I see heads shaking. Is there anybody who really wants to hear from the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, could I just get a clarification of what's revised? There are revised plans. What does the revised refer to? And if you look at page 2, I just don't understand what's been revised.
Let me explain, please. Nothing's been revised. What I submitted here as the presentation was what was originally submitted, along with some additional explanatory diagrams. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just my question would be, you don't have any question with the, you don't have any concern about the staff report that ties it to the site plan, right? You're not asking, you're okay with the staff?
No, we accept that.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Does anybody need to hear? Oh, Mr. Nipfel, no, you don't.
No.
Okay. Anybody really want to hear a presentation? Most of I think our panel doesn't need to hear from you, but it's up to you. You would have 5 minutes, but it might be, it might be your lucky day without those 5 minutes, and then you can use those 5 minutes for lunch or something else. So it's up to you.
Well, I'm sure the committee is very hungry, so I won't make the presentation.
Okay. All right. So let's go into committee. And I'm looking for either a discussion or, better even, a motion. Do we have a motion? Ms. Gasson?
Mr. Chair, I could propose a motion if no one else has any comments or concerns. And I would make a motion to approve this application. I think some of the variances are significant, but this is a large lot, and this is consistent, this proposal is consistent with other houses in that area. I think that I would put the condition that, subject to the planning staff report from September 5th, that variances 2 and 3 be developed substantially in accordance with the site plan attached to the report, and subject to forestry number 2. I think that as I said, some of the variances appear on the surface as large, but there aren't that many variances, and I think that this lot can accommodate them. And I think that it meets the 4 tests.
All right, we've got a motion. We have a seconder. Mr. Bartolo has seconded it. All right, let's put it to a vote. Those in favor? It is approved. Thank you. And now we can have lunch, and we're back at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay.